A very good evening. You are watching Primetime News on TV1. I'm Michaela Fernando, and joining us via Zoom is sign language interpreter Brian De Cruz. Before we head into more news in detail, here a look at your headlines.
New plan to reopen schools and government offices from tomorrow. Isolation status in certain areas lifted. Ensure my security. MP Harin Fernando writes to the Inspector General of Police. Prevent an unstable president from initiating military hostilities or ordering a nuclear strike. Speaker Nancy Pelosi writes to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. India's involvement in the East Container Terminal will encourage foreign investments in Sri Lanka. A statement from the Indian Minister of External Affairs. Livestock in danger after disease spreads rapidly among cattle.
In your top story, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa attended several events in Kurunegala today.
A discussion on the development of the Kurunegala Teaching Hospital was held under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa this afternoon. The meeting had taken place at the auditorium of the Kurunegala District Secretariat. A PCR machine that had been installed recently at the Kurunegala Teaching Hospital was activated during the Prime Minister's visit. Members of the Kurunegala Municipal Council and religious leaders in the area had contributed funds for the machine.
In your weather update, showers or thunder showers with very heavy falls above 150 millimeters can be expected in the northern, eastern, north central and central provinces. The Department of Meteorology said heavy showers above 100 millimeters can be expected at several other areas. The department added that showery weather over most parts of the island is expected to enhance due to the low-level atmospheric disturbance in the southeast of Sri Lanka. In more local news, parliamentarian Harin Fernando has written to the Inspector General of Police in connection to the remarks made by His Excellency the President yesterday.
Video footage and a transcript of the President's remarks have been attached, along with the letter sent by parliamentarian Harin Fernando to the Inspector General of Police. In his letter, MP Fernando claimed that the President has failed to differentiate between a seditious, genocidal, terrorist tyrant and a legislator exercising his fundamental right to freedom of speech in Parliament. The parliamentarian insisted that he will fulfill his duty by continuing to say things that displease the President, regardless of the risk to his life, as long as the President continues to fail in his duties. The letter read, quote, "I have never bribed terrorists to prevent the Tamil people from voting. I have not embraced Karunamman, who has butchered more police officers than any man who ever lived. Above all, I have always been a citizen of Sri Lanka and no other country." The President clearly insinuates that he is capable of having me killed like a dog if I continue saying things that displease him. Given the serious nature of the threat made by President Nandasena Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is also the Commander-in-Chief of the Security Forces and Minister of Defense, I have no reason to doubt him when he implies that he is capable of doing me harm. But I am stunned that the President is so agitated simply because I mentioned his first name. MP Fernando pointed out that past presidents have been called by their names or initials and that no one has been threatened with death for using the names JRJ, Premadasa, DB, Chandrika, Mahinda or Sirisena. He said that he finds it difficult to believe that members of the Buddhist clergy have truly advised him to resort to violence unless the President proves otherwise. The parliamentarian said he is painfully aware that many journalists, activists and parliamentarians who criticized the President when he was the Defense Secretary have either disappeared or been assassinated, and that in many of these cases the attacks were preceded by implied threats or frivolous litigation initiated by politicians and officials. Fernando pointed out that it is his fundamental right to say what he wishes without fear of being summarily executed like a terrorist. The letter to the IGP adds, quote, "I must remind you that you are the Inspector General of Police for the Republic of Sri Lanka and not the personal servant of Namdasena Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Protecting the life and liberty of members of parliament, discharging their duties, is not a personal favour I am asking of you, but an exercise of your solemn duty to defend the constitution of the republic, which you are sworn to do." Unquote. Fernando emphasized that if he is killed for refusing to be silent, he will assume that it was done at the behest of the only man who has ever threatened to kill him. The MP said that a copy of the letter is being sent to the Speaker of Parliament, the Attorney General, heads of foreign missions in Colombo, and the United Nations Special Rapporteurs on freedom of opinion and expression and on extrajudicial, summary or arbitrary executions.
Harin Fernando Metituma Parliamentary Katawa Kare.
Harin Fernando delivered a speech in Parliament recently as a public representative from the Samiki Jana Balawege using his democratic right. We saw that the President had responded harshly to that speech. The remarks made by the President in a democratic state is serious. We are not disputing the killing of Prabhakaran. But Harin Fernando is not a terrorist. He is a Democrat. He is the future leader of our political force. When a parliamentarian delivers a speech in Parliament using his privileges, it is not apt to challenge it in such a manner.
එනිසා කරුණා කරලා ප්‍රභාකරන් කියන ම්ලේච්ඡ ත්‍රස්තවාදියාවත් හරින් ප්‍රනාන්දු කියන තරුණ දේශපාලන නායකයාවත් කිසිසේත්ම සංසන්දනය කරන්නට හැකියාවක් නැහැ.
Therefore, the ruthless terrorist Prabhakaran cannot be compared with a young politician like Harin Fernando. As the leader of the Samiki Jana Balawege, I, along with the members of my party, will continue to unconditionally stand for the security of Harin Fernando. If he is harmed even slightly, then the President and the government must bear responsibility for it. Therefore, we are requesting the Inspector General of Police to immediately increase the security provided to Harin Fernando. US President Donald Trump also attempted to undermine democratic practices and dismiss the voice of the citizens in that country. But what happened in the end? The members of Trump's party also began to oppose him for disregarding democracy. Therefore, I wish to state that there is no room for threats or violence in the democratic state of Sri Lanka. As the leader of the Samiki Jana Balawege, me and my group of parliamentarians will not allow such a situation to arise in the country.
මොනම ආකාරයකින්වත් ඉඩ තබන්නේ නැතයි කියන එක මම බොහොම වගකීමෙන් මේ අවස්ථාවේ කියන්න කැමතියි.
ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශය තුල ගැබ් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
The President's remarks imply that it is Harin Fernando and his groups who are a curse to this country and not Mahinda Rajapaksa or Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his team. If Harin Fernando is considering it to be a threat, it indicates how afraid he is. These remarks are being made just as the report on the April 21st attacks is being compiled by the Presidential Commission. This has created ripples among individuals linked to the attacks, those who abetted it, and the individuals who control the opposition using Prabhakaran's funds. As the Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa worked together with the then President Mahinda Rajapaksa to ensure the right to live of 22 million people, he did not take revenge on terrorists. Therefore, the President clearly said that the current government will not take revenge. If Harin Fernando does not understand that political revenge won't be taken, then he is unfit for politics.
දේශපාලන පරිගැනීමක් නොකරනවා කියලා කියප එකවත් තේරුම් ගන්න බැරි නම් හරින් ප්‍රනාන්දු දේශපාලනයටවත් සුදුසු නැහැ.
Chairman of the National Movement for Social Justice, Karu Jayasuriya, said that there is no room for aggression and death threats in a society where democracy reigns supreme. He added that death threats against MP Harin Fernando or any public representative to intimidate them must be condemned in a civilized society.
ඔහු කියනවා ඔහුට චරිත දෙකක් තිබෙන බව. අපේ ගම්වල ඒකට කියන්නේ දෙබිඩ්ඩ කියන. අවංක මිනිස්සුෙකුට තියෙන්න පුළුවන්.
He is saying that he has two characters. An honest person can have only one character. He is saying that right now he is only personifying the innocent character and that if he wants to, he can personify the Angulimala-like character too. He said that he can personify the character similar to a person who dragged Prabhakaran like a dog after being murdered. So why did the President make a statement like this with so much anger to intimidate a person? He did it because the person mentioned his full name. He could have lost his temper because the price of sugar was not reduced when it was supposed to. A gazette was issued indicating the maximum price of Nadu as 95 rupees and Sambar rice at 98 rupees. He could have lost his temper if vendors were not selling rice at this price. He could have lost his temper when PCR test kits were brought down to the country at a higher price. He could have lost his temper when tourists were brought into the country and a mess was created. We would like to remind Gotabaya Rajapaksa that this thug-like politics that aims to intimidate the general public is no longer valid in Sri Lanka.
බියවද්දන දේශපාලනය වළංගු නැති බව අපි ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මහත්මයාට මතක් කරන්න කැමතියි.
Let's now take a look at the latest developments of the political turmoil in the United States of America.
Speaker of the United States House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi writing to the members of the Congress that she contacted the nation's most senior military officer about Trump's mental fitness and concern about him unilaterally launching a nuclear strike. Pelosi said in a statement, and I quote, "This morning I spoke to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, to discuss available precautions for preventing an unstable president from initiating military hostilities or accessing the launch codes and ordering a nuclear strike," end quote. According to foreign media, attention has been drawn to remove the US president from his position through an impeachment article if this situation persists. Speaker of the United States House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi expressed the following remarks to foreign media as well.
In terms of the Constitution, the Vice President, working with the Cabinet, more than 50% of the Cabinet, improves the security of our country. That doesn't happen. Jamie Raskin has passed legislation that enables another step in the 25th Amendment process. The 25th Amendment process is when it is determined that the president is unfit for whatever reason to be president of the United States, in case some people don't know what that is. And he clearly has indicated that over and over again. And by inciting sedition, as he did yesterday, he must be removed from office. While it's only 13 days left, any day can be a horror show for America.
Allegations have been leveled at Donald Trump that he aggravated his Republican supporters to storm the U.S. Congress building instead of handing over the chair to his winning opponent, Joe Biden, in a peaceful manner.
We'll be right back after this short commercial break.
Do your online shopping now with Sambole.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Sambole.lk.
Welcome back to the news. A video of locals interacting with foreign tourists at a beach has been circulating widely on social media platforms. Let's now take a look at those visuals.
Ukrainian tourist controversy. Ukrainian tourist controversy.
Official figures show that 1.14 million COVID-19 cases have been reported in Ukraine. The number of deaths caused by the virus in Ukraine stands at 20,526. Accordingly, Ukrainian authorities have placed the country under lockdown until the 25th of this month. Meanwhile, 5 batches of more than 1,000 Ukrainian tourists had arrived in the country recently as part of a pilot tourism project. Some tourists have left the country upon completing the visit. When the first batch left for Ukraine yesterday, they commented on their visit. The tourists were given the impression that they would be allowed to visit several areas in the country, but they had to give up on such hopes. We saw a major flaw in the coordination process. The chairperson of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority had said she was unaware of the visits made by the tourists to Yala and Mirissa. I learned about this from the media. The chairperson of the Tourism Authority had asked for her to be kept informed on the itinerary of the tourists. This problem cannot be resolved by slinging mud or criticizing her for that statement. These issues must be resolved through discussions. Otherwise, there is no point in making references to her in Parliament as well. We were told that the tourism project is taking place under health guidelines by placing the tourists in its biobubble. We have issued the relevant guidelines to be followed in this process.
Udyanga Veeratunga is a thief. How did he come into the limelight in this endeavour of bringing down Ukrainian tourists to the country? Who gave him permission? Who is he reporting to? I saw he had said to print media that he is the godfather of Ukrainian tourism. Godfathers are involved in crime. He is using mafia jargon. The institutional methodology in the country will be dismantled through these acts. That is very dangerous. Now they say that this was done knowing the risk of it, that this was a calculated risk. Who did they inform? Did they inform us?
The government has to make challenging decisions in reviving the economy. That is why I said that the easiest way is to purchase 500,000 vaccines and give it to the people who enter the country, to the people who test positive for the virus. Not only to the people who come to the country from the airport, but from sea as well. If we expedite the process of distributing the vaccine, we will be able to give it to all tourists. If you can give the vaccine to safari jeep drivers instead of directing them to quarantine, they can carry out their activities without any trouble.
In more local news, leader of the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, MP Rauf Hakim, said he tested positive for COVID-19 via Twitter today. He further said that it was confirmed following a PCR test submitted yesterday and he will be directed to a facility providing treatment. Meanwhile, State Minister Dayasiri Jayasekara is also receiving treatment for COVID-19. The Speaker expressed views regarding the situation today.
As far as I know, both MPs had not attended parliamentary sittings during the past few days. On the face of it, there seems to be no risk. We have made preparations to disinfect the premises and conduct antigen tests. The virus is already spreading across the country. There is nothing special that the virus is spreading in parliament. MPs who come to the parliament are people who move around the country. We cannot say that the parliament is immune from this risk that is present in the entire country. Parliamentary activities will continue as usual.
Limitations that have been imposed on various sectors in the country will be relaxed from tomorrow onwards. In the line with the circular issued by the Ministry of State Administration, all staff in the State Secretary must report to work starting from tomorrow. According to the circular, only expectant mothers have been exempted from this and they only have to report to work thrice a week. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education said that preparations are underway to reopen schools tomorrow in all areas except for schools in the Western Province and schools located in isolated areas.
Other than the harm this invisible virus does to us, we might face grave consequences if we halt providing education to the children of our country. We will open schools for grade 1 students on the 15th of February. We have given instructions to teachers in charge of grades and classes to teach the necessary lessons students have missed during the first 2 weeks since opening schools.
We now draw your attention towards the latest situation on the controversy surrounding the handing over of the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port.
Speaking to the Veerakesari paper, the Indian Minister of External Affairs had said that the Indian government will maintain communications with the Sri Lankan government regarding the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port. The Indian Minister of External Affairs pointed out that 2/3 of the container operations at the Colombo port are connected to India. He added that the advantages of having India as a stakeholder in the East Container Terminal can clearly be seen. During the interview with the Veerakesari newspaper, the Indian Minister of External Affairs said that India is happy about the fact that Sri Lanka is keen on developing the East Container Terminal through Indian and Japanese investments. The Indian Minister of External Affairs, Dr. S. Jaishankar, stressed that the ownership of the port will remain with Sri Lanka and the deal would help strengthen naval ties between the two nations. He added that this would be a signal to attract investment from India and other foreign nations for the development of Sri Lanka. A number of factions that endorsed the present government during the run-up to the previous presidential election have now united in their opposition against the handing over of the East Container Terminal to an Indian company. They conducted a Zoom meeting yesterday. I am someone who filed a case at the Supreme Court when the Hambantota port was given to a foreign company on a lease in 2017. A government that claimed that these were wrong and attempted to instill that in the society has no moral right to give the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port to a foreign company. We are ashamed. We did not have control over our doors in our own household. There is no point in talking about the sovereignty of our country if we do not have control over our country.
මේ ආකාරයට පදු දෙන්න. ලැජ්ජයි අපිට. ඒක දොරකොඩ පාලනයේ අපසතුව නෑ වගේම තමයි. රටක පාලනයේ අපසතු නැත්තම් දොරකොඩක ඒ රටේ ස්වෛරීත්වය ගැන කතා කරලා පළක් නෑ එතනින් යාර. ලංකාවේ ආණ්ඩුව ඉන්දියාවෙන් ඉල්ල දිනවල මේ අවුරුද්දේ ඩොලර් බිලියන 1ක ණය ඉන්දියාව.
We have learned that the government has requested a loan of $1 billion from India. India has not responded to the request. They had sought to resolve the problem of the East Container Terminal first. The Sena caterpillars are destroying the corn cultivations. On the other hand, the rulers are destroying the country. A port does not indicate only economic strength. It is an aspect that entails both the economy and security. If our ports belong to another country, what will be our fate? If they decide to disband our ports out of disappointment, what will be our country's situation? It is foolish for a country to give away their ports to another nation. We wish to tell the groups that pledged to hit the streets if the government makes a mistake that this is the right time to do that. They are planning to sell the port. Therefore, take to the streets against these actions.
මේ ආණ්ඩුව වරදි කර මුලින් පාට බහින්නේ අපි අය කිව් උදවියට අපි ආරාධනා කරනවා දැන් ඔන්න බහින්න වෙලා වෙච්ච තියෙනවා. වරාය දෙන්නනේ මහත්තයෝ බහින්න.
We now cross over to a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
Do your online shopping now with Sambole.lk to get it home delivered or pick up on your way.
Sambole.lk.
Welcome back to the news. Now, Newsfirst has been reporting on a disease that is spreading rapidly among cattle. However, attention has not been paid to swiftly address this growing problem.
A disease has been spreading among cattle in the Kandawa, Palgahabawa, Wahamalgolawa, Siambalagasswawa and the Oyagama areas in the Ramawa Divisional Secretariat.
The disease is causing wounds on the bodies of the animals that become infected. The veterinarian office does not have medication for this disease. The origin of this virus is yet to be determined. The health authorities have informed that a cure has not been found for this. This has caused many problems in the animal husbandry industry.
The disease that has infected cattle was first reported in September last year. The disease was first detected in the Delft Islands and the areas of Kopai and Kites before spreading to the Mana, Kilnochi, Mullaitiv, Puttalam, Kurnagala, Anuradhapura, Ratnapura, Batiklo, Ampara, Badulla and the Mathura districts. The State Ministry of Livestock Industries had appointed a 7-member committee to inquire into this matter.
Lumpy skin disease
They call this the lumpy skin disease. Although it is new in Sri Lanka, this disease is prevalent in some parts of the world. Foreign nations have developed their vaccines to treat the disease. This disease is believed to be spread by flies or through cattle feed. Povidone 19 is useful in treating the disease. It can be applied on the wounds. The treatment has to be given separately to prevent the flies from transmitting the disease and to cure the wounds on cattle.
The Sena caterpillar menace, reported by Newsfirst on numerous occasions, has aggravated due to delays in taking effective action. Shouldn't immediate attention be paid to this disease that is spreading among cattle?
According to reports published on the Maubima and Aruna newspapers today, a deposit of gold and copper has been found in Seruvilla, Buttala.
According to the reports, although information regarding this deposit has been reported some time ago, no authorities had taken steps to mine the deposit. The newspapers reported that focus has been directed on using this deposit for the development of the country.
Meanwhile, intellectuals point out that the environmental damage caused by the acquisition of lands in Muthurajavela could be catastrophic.
Many metals filtered from seawater are being deposited in a number of layers in areas bordering the sea. In these layers you can find arsenic, mercury and other heavy metals. If any development activity is carried out on these lands, these metals can easily enter the groundwater system of the country. If that happens, the people living in these areas will have to face many issues. People were settled down in a similar area in Bangladesh. These people were given water through tube wells set up in the area. Many people living in this area have fallen sick after consuming this water.
Issuing a statement today, the Central Environmental Authority said that it has instituted legal action against the acquisition of the land. It added that, however, the legal proceedings were concluded after the Department of Irrigation notified them that it was done as per the requirement of the department. The statement adds that an environmental impact assessment report must be obtained for this project, and no request has been submitted to the Central Environmental Authority for such a report.
It has been 11 days since the massive trees at the Rajapilla Park in Kurunegala had been cut off for a development project. Representatives from the Voice of the Country organization visited the area and objected to the destruction in the area.
People who commit such acts must be imprisoned. We wish to remind the government to arrest these individuals. We are waiting to see whether the law would be enforced. If the law is not enforced, we will engage in a massive struggle. We wish to remind that as well. Steps must be taken to protect the ecosystem without engaging in such cruel acts. We will not halt our struggle until the responsible individuals are brought before the law.
Residents took to the streets against the delay of authorities to refurbish a road running across the Yaya 5 and Yaya 6 villages in Mahavilachya.
In international news, authorities have pinpointed the location of the cockpit voice and flight data recorders from the crashed Indonesian jet today. The officials added that it is still unclear what caused the crash and said there were no sign of survivors.
Indonesian divers also located parts of the wreckage of a Boeing 737-500 in the Java Sea as rescuers pulled out body parts, pieces of clothing and scraps of metal from the waters where the Sriwijaya Air Flight SJ187 carrying 62 people crashed. The chief of the Indonesian Armed Forces said, quote, "The two signals emitted by the black box are continuously monitored and now we have marked them." He added that the black boxes will be lifted before long for the National Transportation Safety Committee to investigate and find out the cause of the crash. The Transport Ministry said in a statement that divers recovered parts of the plane about 23 meters below the water surface. The break in the search for Sriwijaya Air Flight 187 came after sonar equipment on a Navy ship detected a signal from the aircraft at a location that fit the coordinates from the last contact made by the pilots before the plane went missing on Saturday afternoon. The plane crashed shortly after takeoff from the Indonesian capital, Jakarta.
Meanwhile, India will launch its vaccination drive against the coronavirus on the 16th of January.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called it a landmark step and said that the aim was to vaccinate 300 million people by July. India has a population of 1.3 billion. He added healthcare staff and frontline workers will be among the first to receive the doses. India has recorded the second highest number of COVID-19 infections in the world after the United States. The country's drug regulator has given the green light to two vaccines, one developed by AstraZeneca with Oxford University known as Covishield and one by Indian firm Bharat Biotech known as Covaxin. India's first nationwide COVID-19 vaccine dry run covering 74 districts were held on the 2nd of January, following which the second dry run was held yesterday covering 33 states. Tweeting yesterday, Modi said, quote, "Starting that on the 16th of January, India's nationwide vaccination drive begins," end quote.
Efforts taken to protect the magnificent coral reefs of Kalpitia have finally paid off. We leave you tonight with visuals of the coral reefs that have beautified Sri Lanka's waters. Take care and good night.